Welcome to Research Perch from the Massage Therapy Foundation. Short, practical insights into massage therapy research and how it can benefit your practice.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Research Perch. We're glad you're here. My name is Michael Reynolds. I'm the chair of the marketing committee for the Massage Therapy Foundation. And as always, here with Nikki Monk and Ruth Werner. Nikki, how's your day going?
It's going great. Thanks, Michael.
Wonderful. Joining us from your office in Indianapolis. And Ruth, how are you? Joining us from home?
I am joining you from home as always, where the sun just came out.
Lovely Oregon. Excellent. Well, thank you both for joining us. As our audience hopefully knows by now, we're here to unpack articles from the International Journal of Therapeutic Massage and Bodywork online at ijtmb.org, where subscription is free. So we encourage you to go subscribe right now or as soon as you get in front of a computer. So today we're talking about the title of this particular study is The Intersection of Massage Practice and Research, Community Massage Therapists, referred to as CMPs in this article, as research personnel on an NIH-funded effectiveness study. And before we were talking, I just had to admit, and I apologize, even the title alone made my brain hurt. So, Nikki, you are a co-author and a co-investigator, if I'm got the terminology correct, on this article. So I'm thrilled to have you because we have the author right here in this discussion, which is fantastic. So I'm actually going to ask you, Nick, if you wouldn't mind starting off and giving us the rundown on exactly what this means and what we're doing here.
Well, I think there's a couple of things to point out with this particular article is that it's a little bit different than most of the articles that we talk about in that it's not reporting on a study that is talking about massage effects in particular. It's more looking at the design and methodology of a study that we just completed when I was at the University of Kentucky and that we're working on disseminating those results now.
Okay, so again, that does seem very different from a lot of the other studies we've talked about because they're saying basically, hey, does massage work in XYZ situations? And this is more stepping back, it feels like, I guess, and taking a big picture look and saying, how can we set up these studies and how can we set up investigations? Am I on the right track?
Yes, well, and to give a little bit of a background, this particular study was funded in 2009. And so, as you can imagine, developing the research design and methodology happened well before that. So when the study was designed, it was being based on the literature that was available at the time. And at that point, and to a large extent today as well, a lot of the research that's being done in massage isn't necessarily reflective of massage as practiced in the real world, and that has many implications. So it could be that there's only a few massage therapists that are providing the massage treatments that are available in the research study or that are being used in the research study. And so even though the results are meaningful from those studies, absolutely, it can't necessarily be said, is it the massage practitioner, that particular person and their skill level and all of these things that's part of the effects with this. And what this study wanted to look at, it's looking at chronic low back pain. It wanted to really reflect if a primary care provider sent one of their patients to go and get massage therapy out in the community, because that's how it would happen typically in the United States, what kind of effects would they have? And so that was the study in a nutshell, wanting to look and see at the effectiveness of massage therapy. But what this particular article is looking at is how effective were community massage practitioners at providing the massage therapy treatments when it needed to be done in a research setting, if you will.
Ah, that makes a lot of sense. It actually kind of, some light bulbs are already going off in my head, which is great because I thought I would never be able to figure out what's going on here. And I think you really brought it home for me because, a lot of the things we talk about are kind of in this controlled, research-driven setting. And it sounds like this is basically opening up that potential research into a little more of a less controlled environment, which is, like you said, people getting treatments out in the community by massage therapists who are practicing massage therapists next door, so to speak. So is that, I'm understanding that, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I'd like to pop in here for a minute
please.
and add my perspective on this. it was interesting for me to hear Nikki talk about how the preparation for this project happened, what seems like quite a long time ago now, right? And that in reading the article, you've made it clear that everything had to rely on research that dated from 2008 and before, and that's like a lifetime.
Yep.
In the research world, especially around massage therapy, because so much of it is happening so recently.
Right.
But one of the things I want to clarify for our listeners is the difference between an effectiveness study and an efficacy study. And so, Nikki, I'm going to give this my best shot.
Okay.
And you, as our professional researcher, will correct me if I've gone wrong. But this is the way I've organized these terms in my head. When I was new to research and really becoming self-taught, I didn't know the difference really between these words, and I didn't realize how important it is to know the difference between efficacy and effectiveness. So this is I'll talk about that and then why it matters for this study. So an efficacy study asks the question, will this intervention work under the circumstances that are the most possible for it to work?
So the most ideal. Mm-hmm.
The most ideal, right. The most ideal to get a positive outcome. And so, in drug studies, for instance, they'll limit all the variables and they'll pick and choose their participants to get, the best kinds of results or whatever. And those efficacy studies are reasonably easy to do for a lot of different kind of medical interventions. But for massage therapy, it's harder to do an efficacy study because we don't really know what the ideal circumstances are. Are the ideal circumstances that everybody does exactly the same protocol and you do 8 strokes of effleurage followed by 3 minutes of petrissage, whatever? Is that the best possible? Is that the ideal setting, or is the ideal setting that you get a really, really good massage therapist who knows how to, listen to their client and work with confidence toward achieving those goals? And so efficacy studies so that's one of the obstacles that massage therapy research has really faced, is that efficacy studies sometimes don't reflect what we really do. The other side of this is effectiveness studies. And so effectiveness studies are designed to look at an intervention in a real world or a real life setting. And up until recently, we didn't have very many effectiveness studies about massage therapy. The protocols were really limited. They weren't done by massage therapists. They were, things that we called massage therapy research up until, say, 2005 or so. Lots of times weren't done by massage therapists or only peripherally massage, the way we call it. And so one of the things this paper did that was unusual and unprecedented was look at massage therapy in a real world setting with real life massage therapists working in their own offices on a pretty large scale. It was a remarkable opportunity to gather data on that. So I just want to recap. That's what makes this that's what the word effectiveness means, is does this intervention work in a real world setting, as opposed to efficacy, which is does this intervention work in an ideal setting? And what's interesting is that a lot of times we see in massage, our results are better in effectiveness, real world settings than they are in, quote, ideal settings, because there's not good agreement on what ideal settings are. Right. For studying massage therapy.
I guess maybe this is a dumb question, but why aren't more studies based in this type of format? Because it sounds like it's focused on the effectiveness side of the coin, and so.
Well, there's pros and cons. There's pros and cons to each approach, and there's different informations that you're going to get out of each kind of approach. So in the case of pharmacological studies, which is where the gold standard randomized control trial, which is really looking at efficacy of something, it can be very cut and dry. There's a very specific mechanism through which the treatment is going to be working. And for massage therapy and a lot of other kind of manual or people-driven interventions, this is the same for physical therapy, occupational therapy, all these things where there's so many other, there's so many other different kind of factors that play into it. The connection with the practitioner, the experience level, perhaps the practitioner, other sorts of pieces, individual personalities, things like that. I mean, all these sorts of things could have an effect, and results could be altered by those different things. And so when you have an efficacy study, it answers the question that this treatment works. It doesn't necessarily answer the question, does it work in the real world? Now, if you have an effectiveness study and it shows that it works, you can say, you know what, it does work. We don't necessarily know why it's working or what the actual active ingredient, if you will, is in the treatment, but we know that it works out in the real world. But what it can't necessarily do is tell you exactly why it's working. But now if you get a negative result in an effectiveness study, you can't necessarily point to why it is that it didn't work, because it very well may be, well, we didn't have this type of setting, and now if we kind of step back a little bit, let's try and control this a little bit more and see if it perhaps will work under this more ideal situation. And then you can start pairing it and figuring out maybe it's a very small percent of the population that this particular treatment would be effective for. And efficacy studies are better able to identify those sorts of pieces than an effectiveness study.
Okay, so
I haven't heard it argued in that way, and that's helpful.
Yeah, there's a lot of nuance to it.
Yeah, to get back to this article, I'd like to place it into a larger context.
Please.
Again, for our listeners. So again, Nikki, please feel free to correct me if I get this wrong. But the NIH, National Institutes of Health, funded a relatively large-scale study on chronic low back pain, and part of the plan for that study was to recruit professional massage therapists, but not professional researchers. Professional massage therapists in their communities, in their towns, to work with the participants in this study to look at, does massage help with chronic low back pain in a real world setting? So that's sort of the larger picture. But what Nikki and her team did for this particular paper was just ask questions about, is this even practical? Is it feasible to recruit, how many people did you get? 25 professional massage therapists who had no background in research at that point and get good data from them.
Right. And so the primary investigator of the study is a gentleman by the name of Bill Elder, and he's still at the University of Kentucky with the Department of Family and Community Medicine. And he had worked with a prior study that was training medical students or introducing medical students to complementary alternative medical practices. And when he was doing that study, he started a network of community massage practitioners who could come in and talk to medical students. And so they had already developed sort of this core group of massage therapists who were at least a little hooked in to the research community. And that's actually where Katie Stewart, who's one of the authors on this paper as well, and she was the principal massage liaison for the study.
And she'll be a familiar name. She's been very active in the massage therapy community.
Yes, absolutely. And but then the big issue was, now we need to get more than just Katie. And in fact, Katie didn't do any of the massages for this particular study, but we went out and did active recruiting, lots of mailing efforts to identify people not only in the larger town, and this took place in Lexington, Kentucky primarily, but we also had rural areas that we were looking at because we wanted to see well, there's lots of rural and urban kinds of differences that we won't get into at this point. And so really being able to get out into those smaller communities and more rural communities and how to identify those folks. And then, and on another piece of this, as researchers, there was a lot of pieces that we wanted to turn over to the massage provider, one, so it would reflect a real world situation. And one of those things is the massage practitioner tends to do their own scheduling. And it's up to the patient or client and them and that relationship to do those sorts of things. Instead of, in a research situation, the research coordinator would handle all of those sorts of scheduling and calling to make sure that things are happening, but that wouldn't reflect real massage practice, right? So we had to find folks who were interested in participating and who were willing to be trained in human protection subjects, research subject human protection training for the IRB and pieces like that. But then they also had to document what they were doing, and more than just the regular SOAP notes. But what was also really cool about this study is that we did not dictate to them the protocol they had to do. And so just like in real world, the massage practitioner was able to see this client, and assess what their issues were and develop a treatment plan just for them. But also as researchers and other researchers out in the world who might be interested in looking at massage therapy as practiced in the real world, can massage therapists be reliable to do the sorts of things that are needed? And this is one of the things that this paper reports. And what we found was that they were incredibly reliable. We got back most all of the documentation. They made the scheduled appointments very quickly, because once the patient came in, I got their baseline measures, we did the consenting process, all of that. I didn't see them again until after they had their massages or not. So I just called them after the 12-week intervention, and the rest of it was up to the massage therapist and the participant, just like it would be in the real world. If a doctor said, okay, go and get massage therapy, they're not going to see him again until their next appointment. So,
and you had something like 90 or 94% compliance with getting all of your paperwork in, I think. Isn't that right?
Yes, a very high compliance. It was sort of funny is when I go and talk about this experience with other researchers who do research that requires different locations to submit paperwork and things like that, they just look at me with jaw just on the floor. They're like, I
love that.
Really? That many people sent back their stuff? And it's like, yes, they did. And we didn't have to hound them. I mean, it was just a matter of, here's the pieces, here's the treatment notes. And it was, we tried to make it as easy as possible. There were a lot of check boxes, but they still had the SOAP note that they filled in, and they did those pieces very well.
So
this is kind of, go ahead, Ruth, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, what I wanted, Nikki sort of just answered one of the questions that I wrote down, which is I'm wondering how compliance and the rigor with which people did their paperwork compares, if you know, to other healthcare provider feasibility studies.
No clue. I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm just curious how we stack up that way.
This is kind of fascinating because now that I'm 20 minutes smarter and I actually understand this now, it was some clarity, which is awesome. I kind of feel like I'm watching Inception because it's really a study within a study.
Yeah,
exactly. Understands correctly, because the study was a chronic low back pain study, but the study was not that. The study was to see if the study could be effective in that study. So I think it's really kind of fascinating when you think about it that way.
Right? This particular paper is reporting the study within the study.
Sorry,
right.
This particular paper is reporting. So it wasn't about the low back pain. It was about seeing if this method for conducting research is viable. Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly right.
Love it.
Yes.
And so it sets a wonderful precedent for anyone else who's interested in recruiting a bunch of massage therapists. One of the things I loved about this was the charts with the obstacles and the proposed solutions for how to get past, challenges like generating interest, or whether people knew what an IRB was, or there were a lot of really great suggestions that is going to make it much easier for the next researcher who wants to recruit a bunch of massage therapists who are scattered
Hopefully so. Well, and for us to continue along that process and doing our next studies too. Now I'm in a new environment here at Indiana University in Indianapolis, and the hope is to do that sort of community as well here. So we've got some folks who are interested in participating in research at this level. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's where my head goes next. I would assume that there are some people listening that would say, hey, I'm a professional massage therapist. I would love to participate in a study like this. How do they just get in touch with someone like you, Nikki, and just reach out and say, hey, I'm interested? Obviously, Ruth has an ebook on the Massage Therapy Foundation website with some guidelines. That might be a good resource as well. But is it feasible for a professional massage therapist just to say, hey, I'd love to participate. I want to reach out and find a study that I can help with?
It can be potentially, certainly if there's somebody in if there's a listener who has somebody in their area that's doing research like this, just letting the researchers know, hey, I'm here, I'd be interested in participating at, whatever kind of level, just letting folks know about that is certainly important. I had that happen a couple of times when I was in Kentucky. I've not had that experience yet here, but if there's any Indianapolis area listeners that would like to, I'd love to hear from them.
Well, I would like to encourage I'm also in Indianapolis as well, so I would love to encourage anyone who's in that area to putting you on the spot a little bit, Nikki, I hope it's okay, but to reach out to you and see if you would be willing to help.
Oh, absolutely. Well, or interested in participating. I mean, I have active studies right now that are looking for massage therapists to do work, and there's sometimes really great opportunity, but you never know unless you ask or reach out sometimes.
Right on.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that Geraldine Cambron, the current president at the foundation, often recommends at this point is for people to go to a website called clinicaltrials.gov.
Mm-hmm.
And there you can see a list of trials that are in process. Some of them, in process, some of them still enrolling, and you can just see if there's anything in your geographic area.
Isn't that just funded studies, Ruth?
I think so, but I am not the authority on that.
Yeah, and I think that there's oftentimes a lot of other things that are happening and going on with opportunity to participate that might not be in one of those larger pieces. But that would be a really great way to identify some of the larger groups potentially. But also, if you're reading things in the journal and you happen to notice that some of the affiliations are in your area or close by, or you recognize a couple of names, certainly reaching out or going to different conferences like the national meetings or the different research conferences and introducing yourself, and certainly doing it in a professional way and in an informed way. I mean, it would be really hard for me to respond to somebody that emails me and says, "Oh, I'm interested in doing research. What can you tell me?" That doesn't get. I mean, that is so broad, and I've actually. Right, and I've actually had some things like that, and it's like, well, I need a little bit more.
I would direct those people to Ruth's ebook, most likely. I would say
which is what I've done.
The starting point is go to massagetherapyfoundation.org and click on resources and find the one called How to Connect with a Researcher. It's a great starting point.
It is. It's a really great starting point.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that one of the things that this article is, what's really unique about this article too, is that it can really apply to massage practice and research and education. Educators can certainly use this as almost an experiment or a discussion of professionalism and being involved in research. Also in sort of the steps it takes to do research and some of the pieces that perhaps haven't been necessarily addressed in the massage research realm. From a practice standpoint, just to be, if you are certainly interested in becoming being involved in research, the boundaries, the barriers and solutions that we identify in this paper might be really helpful to be able to figure out how to situation yourself to be more able to participate in research if it were available. And then, of course, from the research side, being able to inform future pieces and future designs.
Awesome. So I would definitely like to encourage our massage therapists who are our listeners to not be shy, to get involved, to reach out to one of you, to grab that ebook, to try to get involved in the world of research, because it's very important, obviously. I mean, again, the study was not about low back pain. It was about the viability Yeah, this article,
this-
sorry.
Right. You got to really clarify that.
This article,
Yeah.
sorry, and this is where I show my ignorance of some of the terminology here, but the article is not about the study, it's about the viability of this type. But really when it comes down to it, I mean, massage therapy research is designed to figure out, again, correct me if I'm saying this wrong, I'm sure I am, but the efficacy and the effectiveness of how massage therapy really does work and how it can be used as a viable method of healthcare and wellness. Is that
Sure.
am I okay in saying that? Does that sound like I'm on the right, thinking right in this?
Yes, and ultimately that is what all research is doing, is trying
Yeah.
to figure out efficacy in some regards and effectiveness in other regards. And there's different kind of designs, which are topics for other podcasts, perhaps.
Indeed. And this helps everyone. This helps professional massage therapists in their everyday practice in a number of ways. So it's very important work. So thank you so much, Nikki, and thank you, Ruth, for, again, I feel 20 minutes smarter already. This is fantastic. I am leaving this discussion with a lot more knowledge and a lot more excitement about what you're both doing. So thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. Thanks everyone who joined us today. Again, I encourage you to grab the entire paper online at ijtmb.org. You can search for any keyword in the title. I would probably search for community massage therapist. That's probably the best way to find it. It's linked below if you're watching as well. You can just grab the link on the blog post. So if you're listening, keep on listening. We really appreciate it. Find us online at massagetherapyfoundation.org and subscribe to our blog. If you're watching, please consider clicking below to subscribe, and you can take this podcast with you on your smartphone via Stitcher or iTunes. So many formats to serve you. So thank you so much for joining us. Nikki, Ruth, thank you again. And appreciate you joining us today. We'll see you next time.
Bye, Michael.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Research Perch. Please send feedback or questions to perch@massagetherapyfoundation.org. See you next time.